This is your News Source Evening Bulletin for today, Tuesday, the first day of March in the year 2022. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting, and here's what we're tracking tonight. Magistrate Peter Hugh today ruled that a strong enough case has been made out against Berbice men Vinod Gopal and Anil Sanchara for them to face a high court trial for the murder of cousins Joel and Isaiah Henry back in 2020. The magistrate committed the two accused to face a judge and jury trial following the completion of the preliminary inquiry. He ruled that a sufficient case was made out by the prosecutor, police legal advisor Mandel Moore. The two accused, Gopal and Sanchara, were jointly charged and remanded to jail last year for the double murder that gripped the nation and led to protests in the Berbice area. The two cousins were discovered dead and mutilated in the Cotton Tree Bag Dam in the West Coast Berbice area, one day after they went missing after venturing into the bag dam to pick coconuts. The two teens sustained multiple chop wounds and injuries, including wounds to their spine and skull. In a statement today, the Guyana police force said the prosecution relied on the main witness in the matter, who provided details of the double murder. The same main witness is also facing the court separately in relation to the same double murder. There are reports that he was removed from prison custody and placed in special protective custody in the lead up to his testimony and during the testimony. Government pathologist Dr. Nihal Singh also testified during the preliminary inquiry about a post-mortem examination that he conducted on the bodies of Joel and Isaiah Henry. With the case now being transferred to the High Court, the trial will have to be set for an available time at the hearing of the Berbice Assizes. More news coming up in just a moment.
How fast is fiber? Think fast. GTT Fiber has 3 packages with download speeds of 50, 100, and 150 megabits per second. That's fast enough to stream movies and music, to chat with Gran and Fran, to study, and more. What would you do? Upgrade to GTT Fiber today and don't get left behind tomorrow.
People may forget the present you bought for them, but they'll never forget your scent. Find your signature fragrance at Elite Fragrances and Trade-In, located at 123 Region Road Border between Ornock Street and Shiv Chandapal Drive. Call 619-5151 or 227-1255. Get a designer fragrance for yourself or loved one that they will never forget.
We've got exciting news! All 12-ounce yellow cab Buster are now only $100. Buster, live in
Come
full
get
color.
your Buster, Buster $100. Come get your Buster, Buster $100.
Welcome back. The Secretary General of Caricom, Dr. Carla Barnett, today sounded a call for the Caribbean region to begin picking up the pieces and start to move forward in a world with the COVID-19 pandemic. Many countries in the region, especially those that are heavily dependent on tourism, were badly affected by the pandemic. At the opening of the Caricom Heads of Government meeting this morning in Belize, the Caricom Secretary General said there are still significant obstacles from the pandemic that continue to affect the region.
We gathered together around the table rather than virtually for the first time in almost 2 years. The circumstances that occasioned that hiatus are still with us. We are learning to live with it and to conduct our affairs in what can only be described as the new normal. This we have to abide by in coming to grips with repairing the health, social, and economic devastation of the COVID-19 pandemic. Once again, a disaster not of our own making has befallen us. Significant obstacles still lay in our path. Much too many of our citizens remain unvaccinated. Too many of our children are still out of school. Too many of our businesses are still floundering with the resultant effect on unemployment.
Just last week, the Pan American Health Organization called on countries in the region to redouble their efforts to get more citizens vaccinated against COVID-19. According to the Caricom Secretary General, it is now time for the region to begin its journey to build back better.
Just as the skills of the Caribbean Public Health Agency have guided us through the pandemic, The operations of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency have been crucial in times of natural disaster, and the structures of the Caricom Implementation Agency for Crime and Security and the RSS have helped to keep us safe from external security threats. We have in place the tools that we can use to build back better from the social and economic damages of the pandemic. We must now move forward with the trust and confidence we have in those institutions into those measures that make the Caricom single market and economy work for all of us.
The Secretary General said the region must focus on making itself more resilient against other challenges. She noted that there must be renewed focus to build a single market and economy and reduce food imports into the region, while pushing regional agriculture and regional economies more. Still with Caricom, President Irfan Ali would like Caricom leaders to focus more on the removal of trade barriers within the community that continues to affect member states. The president is in San Pedro, Belize, attending the intersessional Caricom Heads of Government meeting. He said one of the priority issues that should be addressed is the need for a commitment to remove the hurdles to trade in the region, noting that production in various sectors cannot be increased in the region while there are trade barriers.
I am looking forward to a very robust discussion on trade barriers, at the end of which I would like to see a timetable develop in which we must all commit ourselves in the region to the removal of barriers and making interregional trade and interregional exchange of goods hassle-free.
Guyana currently holds lead responsibility for agriculture, agricultural diversification, and food security in Caricom, and is spearheading the regional body's quest of reducing its $5 billion food importation bill. On the question of food security for the region, the president is expected to present a paper in these areas and is also expected to provide an outline of the objectives by both Guyana and the region as a whole, along with comprehensive strategies in achieving the target of reducing the region's food import bill by 25% by the year 2025.
So we'll be presenting a wide-ranging policy paper that would not only address the issues of production and agriculture, but would address the constraints, would address issues surrounding what is required to increase productivity, technical support, financial support, crop insurance. So this is a very important meeting for the achievement of our food security plans and projections.
Discussions on regional transportation, logistics, and security are also issues that the president hopes to be addressed during the meeting. He also said he's looking forward to a full discussion on the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. The opposition APNU-AFC coalition is still considering an approach to the courts over the Natural Resource Fund Act and whether it was legally passed. But even with that option on the table, the opposition is planning to put forward its nominee for the Natural Resource Fund Board. Initially, the opposition did not want to be part of the process, but it appears to have now fully turned away from that position. During a press conference today, PNC Reform leader Aubrey Norton said that the opposition is firm in its position that the act was not passed, but while it is preparing to head to the courts, it will submit its nominee to sit on the Natural Resource Fund Board to oversee the government's handling of the oil funds. Norton explained that the opposition's non-support for the act does not mean it must sit and allow only the government to have a say on how the country's oil resources are spent.
Now, in the circumstance, we have got to ensure we have people there to scrutinize what is happening. And in that regard, we have agreed that we will nominate people while at the same time doing it under protest and signaling that we intend to challenge it in a court.
The PNC Reform leader also said the move to nominate a person to sit on the NRF board is in the interest of the Guyanese people, and that at the level of the party, it will otherwise pursue the matter.
In the real world of politics, if you leave the Natural Resource Fund without scrutiny, one, you will be excluding yourself from knowing what is happening, and two, you will be making the ground much easier for the PPP to not only continue to expand its corruption. And so we are taking a pragmatic approach which says we will challenge it, we will argue that it hasn't been legally passed, until a court decides otherwise.
As it relates to nominees for the board, the PNC reform leader said the government should have laid out a set of principles on who can sit on the board so as to weed out politically compromised persons from sitting on the board as independent personalities. The party leader said the People's National Congress reform will work towards ensuring that its nominee is professionally competent. The government of Guyana is not happy with the pushback it has been getting regarding the Amila Falls Hydropower project, and the Finance Minister Dr. Ashley Singh has conveyed that disappointment. The project is one of the flagship projects of the last PPCivic government, but was scrapped under the former coalition government. When the PPCivic moved back into government in 2020, it revived the 165 megawatt hydropower project, which the government has since said will start later this year and be completed by 2025. But the project has come under heavy scrutiny, with persons questioning the viability of the project, while others have questioned the cost and the decision to have it owned by a Chinese company for 20 years. The Minister of Finance, Dr. Ashley Singh, said he is concerned that there is misinformation being peddled about the hydropower project. The minister is of the view that there is a misinformation campaign ongoing against major government projects, but some of the persons who have questioned the big government projects have pointed to failed projects like the failed Skeldon Sugar Estate project and the fiber optic cable project. Civil society groups have also warned the government to not make the same mistakes that it did with those major projects. But the Minister of Finance is assuring that the Amila Falls project was subject to extremely detailed studies and analysis by international technical experts, and it was examined by the international development agencies and bilateral partners such as Norway.
Let me be crystal clear that the resumption of this campaign of misinformation has one objective in mind, the same objective that the same misinformation campaign during the pre-2015 period, and that is to frustrate development, to deny the people of Guyana the benefits of development as long as a People's Progressive Party civic government is in office.
The government has long argued that the development of the hydropower project is needed to fulfill the current development and expansion plan of the Guyana Power and Light Company. A Partnership for National Unity, the APNU, has formally written to the representative of the list, David Granger, informing him that it has decided that its chairman, PNC leader Aubrey Norton, should replace Nicolette Henry as a parliamentarian when her resignation takes effect at the end of this month of March. Now that Mr. Granger has been notified, he will now have to communicate the party's decision to the Speaker of the National Assembly and then made a request for the Elections Commission to extract Mr. Norton's name to send him to Parliament. Mr. Granger has long said that he had no issue of sending Norton to Parliament once there were consultations with APNU partners. Those consultations have since been held. The PNC reform leader Aubrey Norton says he is not certain whether Mr. Granger has commenced the process as yet for him to become a parliamentarian.
I don't know that he did, and I think that we'll have to await the resignation. Remember, the resignation is to the 31st of March. So there is not a vacant seat until the 31st of March. So I don't foresee him writing before the 31st of March.
Since the PNCR Biennial Delegates Conference last December, which saw Mr. Norton being elected party leader, the PNC reform has been scrambling to make changes at the level of the National Assembly. Mr. Joe Harmon, who lost the leadership race to Norton, resigned as opposition leader, days after the central executive of the party decided that Norton must be the new opposition leader.
The process will work its way through, and I believe that the People's National Congress wants me to be a member of parliament, and it will be achieved.
Once Mr. Norton takes the oath of office as a member of parliament, the opposition is expected to vote him in as the new leader of the opposition. Some sad news to report now. 24-year-old Labour Ministry driver Lionel Berkeley lost his life last evening as he rode his motorcycle and crashed into a woman while she was walking on the pedestrian crossing on the East Bank Public Road at Agricola. The accident occurred at around 7 o'clock last night. A police statement said Berkeley was proceeding north along the center of the western carriageway when he collided with a pedestrian. The impact of the collision pitched the rider and the pedestrian onto the roadway. The rider was not wearing any helmet at the time, and it is suspected that he badly hit his head on the roadway. The two were picked up and taken to the Georgetown Hospital in an unconscious state, where the rider was pronounced dead on arrival, while the pedestrian was rushed into emergency care. She remains hospitalized in a critical condition. The 24-year-old rider lived in the East Randville community and was the driver for the Minister of Labor. Investigations into the accident are ongoing tonight.
It's been a long time coming. Overdue, some might say. But now that it's here, it will change life forever. And it is here to stay. The future is now. Transforming Guyana into the 21st century. Introducing GTT Fiber. Experience internet connectivity like never before. Speeds you deserve at prices you can afford from a name you can trust. Sign up today. GTT Fiber is here. GTT. Together, we rise faster.
We've got exciting news! All 12-ounce yellow cab Buster are now only $100. Buster, live in
Come
full
get
color.
your Buster, Buster $100. Come get your Buster, Buster $100. Fuel it up and drive, super 95. Tune up, fuel it up and drive, super 95. Tune up. Protect your fuel system, boy. High mileage and performance, boy.
Guyoil Super 95 gasoline gives you more reasons to drive and is available at 56 service stations nationwide. For affordable price, high performance, and high mileage, choose Guyoil's Super 95 gasoline.
Fuel it up and drive.
Across the region tonight, in Jamaica, the minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Matthew Samuda, has indicated that Jamaica remains committed to its environmental protection targets. He said in December 2020, Jamaica and 13 other countries announced their commitment to a new global ocean action agenda, which seeks to achieve 100% sustainable ocean management of areas within national jurisdiction, guided by sustainable ocean plans by 2025, and to support a global target to protect 30% of the ocean by 2030. He made the announcement this morning as he addressed the 5th session of the UN Environmental Assembly, which is now underway in Nairobi, Kenya. Among the country's international biodiversity and blue economy commitments, the official said is the declaration of a section of the Petra Bank as a protected area, which is expected to be accomplished this year. The minister further noted that Jamaica is also actively engaged in the restoration programs for several key marine and coastal ecosystems, including mangrove forests, seagrass beds, and coral reefs. The new government of Honduras has announced that it will ban open-pit mining in the Central American nation. The government, which was sworn in last month, also said it would cancel environmental permits for mining operations across the country. It is not yet clear if the cancellation will apply only to new projects or also to those already operating. For decades, indigenous groups have complained of legal and illegal mining in their ancestral lands. Honduras mines gold, silver, copper, lead, and zinc. But on Monday, the Ministry of Mining described the extractive exploitation as harmful to the state of Honduras. It argued that mining threatened natural resources and public health, as well as limiting access to water. The ministry statement also declared the entire Honduran territory as an area free of open-pit mining, and said that it would proceed with a revision and suspension and cancellation of environmental license and concessions. And finally tonight, international news. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of war crimes after airstrikes, including on a central square in the country's second city. At least 10 people were killed and 35 hurt when the Opera House, Concert Hall and government offices were hit in Freedom Square in Kharkiv. Speaking to the European Parliament, Mr. Zelensky urged the EU to prove that it was with the Ukraine. Later, the main TV tower in the capital of Kiev was hit, putting media off air. Footage on social media showed smoke billowing from the steel structure. 5 people died in the attack. Ukrainian officials said, but the tower remains standing. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting and encouraging you to stay safe.